Someone is riding with you in the passenger seat of a truck. The road is busy, the light is bad, and for half a second, a motorcycle slides past in the opposite lane. Most people would catch the shape and forget it immediately, but the person next to you doesn't even turn their head. They say, almost lazily, "That's a 1998 Ducati Monster 900, stock exhaust, probably original tank." This is worth slowing down for, because that kind of recognition is not just a hobby flex, it is the visible edge of a mind that was organized very early around a very specific kind of meaning. For some people, motorcycles entered that system early, not as machines, as atmosphere, as noise, as presence. Maybe it was a father in the driveway wiping down a tank with a rag like he was caring for something alive. Maybe it was an older brother who rolled out on a Saturday morning and came back with stories that sounded bigger than the road itself. Maybe it was a neighborhood where bikes meant freedom, independence, maybe even danger. But whatever the entry point, the message arrived before the facts did. This thing matters. Watch it, listen to it, remember it. That matters because children don't just learn content, they absorb emotional temperature. A child watching a person talk about motorcycles with reverence is not necessarily learning engine displacement or model years. They are learning that this domain is important enough to deserve attention. They are learning what devotion looks like. They are learning what expertise sounds like when it is loved, not performed. And the brain files that away in a very specific way. It is not motorcycle facts, it is, this is a world I should care about. Neuroscience has a name for part of this: emotional tagging. When something carries emotional charge, the brain tags it for stronger storage. That is why one person can remember the exact bike that terrified them at age 12 while forgetting what they had for lunch yesterday. Emotion acts like a highlighting pen. It says, keep this one. And once motorcycles get highlighted enough times, the whole category becomes easier to access. The brain is no longer looking up information, it is returning to a file that was opened years ago and never really closed. That is why the answer can arrive before awareness even has time to join the conversation. Then there is pattern recognition, which is where the magic starts to look like intuition. Most people look at a motorcycle and see a motorcycle. The person who knows bikes sees a cluster of differences: the rake of the front end, the shape of the headlight, the seat line, the angle of the exhaust, the sound of the idle, the gap between what the bike is and what it is pretending to be. Cognitive psychologists call this chunking. The novice sees 30 separate details. The expert sees one familiar pattern, not because they are trying harder, but because years of exposure have collapsed complexity into recognition. The brain saves energy by turning repeated information into instant categories. And motorcycles are especially suited to this because they do not just speak visually, they speak in sound. A Harley has a kind of low, uneven pulse that many riders can identify before they see it. A parallel twin has a different rhythm. An inline four sounds sharper, smoother, higher strung. Even the way a bike passes you can reveal it. The mind learns these signatures the same way it learns faces. Over time, the ear and eye stop working separately. They become one recognition system. That recognition system is powered by reward. When the brain correctly identifies a bike, even in a split second, a small burst of satisfaction lands. It is not dramatic, it is not applause, it is quieter than that, but it matters, because the brain begins to associate the act of noticing with pleasure. It becomes a feedback loop. Notice, confirm, reward. Notice again. And after enough repetition, the person isn't consciously searching for motorcycles. Their attention has been tuned in that direction by years of small internal rewards. The brain learns, this is a place where I am right, and being right feels good. This is why motorcycle people often seem to scan the world differently. They are not trying to show off. They are processing the environment through a filter built out of desire. The bike is not just a vehicle, it is a symbol loaded with meaning. Speed, yes, but also independence, risk, style, Craftsmanship, identity. For some people, a motorcycle was the first object that seemed to combine mechanical beauty with emotional possibility. A car gets you there. A motorcycle feels like a decision about who you are while getting there. That distinction matters, because once a machine becomes part of self-concept, knowledge stops being decorative, it becomes structural. The person who can identify a 1986 Yamaha VMAX or a 2004 Triumph Bonneville is not just reciting trivia, they are reinforcing a story they tell themselves about competence, taste, and belonging. This is called self-concept consistency. People like to remain coherent. They prefer to stay aligned with the version of themselves they have built over time. So expertise becomes more than expertise. It becomes proof that their attention was not wasted. And for motorcycle people, that proof often started long before they owned a bike. Maybe it began with posters on a bedroom wall, maybe with magazines spread across a floor, maybe with a parent explaining why one engine felt right and another sounded wrong, maybe with the first time they heard a machine come around the corner and knew, even without seeing it, that it was something special. Those moments matter because the brain does not separate the feeling from the fact. It stores them together. The sound, the shape, the weather, the age, the person attached to the memory, it all gets bundled. That is why the person who knows every motorcycle on the road can seem almost supernatural. But it is not supernatural. It is the result of years of paying attention to the same category until the category became part of perception itself. What looks like instant recognition is actually slow devotion made visible. The expert isn't good at motorcycles in the abstract. They have built a nervous system that expects motorcycles to matter, so it notices them before consciousness catches up. And once you understand that, the obsession looks different. It stops looking like random collecting and starts looking like identity maintenance. It says something simple and deep. I was there, I noticed, I learned, and I kept noticing long after most people stopped caring. In a world where attention is constantly pulled apart by noise, that kind of continuity is rare. The motorcycle person is often someone who found one narrow lane of reality early and stayed in it long enough for the lane to become a home. So when a bike passes and they name it before you even turn your head, they are not just displaying memory, they are revealing a lifetime of emotional conditioning, reward, repetition, and self-definition, all compressed into 1 second of effortless certainty. The answer comes out fast because the mind was trained to make that answer fast, and the reason it was trained that way is because somewhere early on, motorcycles stopped being transportation and became meaning. So, I want to know something. If a bike went by right now, what's the first model you'd recognize without thinking? And if this made you see motorcycle people a little differently, subscribe.